we've got Shorny who's going to talk to us about ideas for SMSC in our classroom. She's a fan. I like this because I finished it off a Twitter page. So our history of politics, the arts, and alternative music. So perhaps you have some sort of your own hand over to you. So Shorny Morgan, everybody, please.
Right, so I did this presentation at the time when there was a TM English meeting going on, so I'm sure some of you will not be English people, but you might get some ideas from it. Okay, so SMSC, the new Ofsted box, spiritual, moral, social and cultural development of our learners, and that's something that in our department we've been talking a lot about, and in the school as a whole, and I know the maths department is struggling with it, so we've been trying to come up with some ways that we can do that. Yeah, so Ofsted's a new box, and it kind of feels like we're just being led down another route. When I'm teaching punctuation, how am I meant to do this? So that's what I thought I'd do. So in our learning objective, what I've been experimenting with is, instead of just having learning objectives, having inquiry questions. So for example, instead of saying to analyse the theme of injustice in a text that I was doing with my A-level students on Tuesday, I posed it as a question, so that we thought about some wider issues within that. And it brought us to discussing loads of things about the context, the historical context, and how that affects us today, and how can we make those links. Also in starter activities, how can we use SMSC in starter activities as a way of ticking that Ofsted box? So when I was thinking about punctuation, as I said earlier, I've been posing questions that have SMSC links. And I've let my Year 7s plan those themselves, and they lead their own starters based on questions that they've read about in the news that week, for example, and they've really, really enjoyed taking ownership of that. And in plenaries, how will this learning help you outside of the classroom? Really simple thing, but something that I don't always remember to do. And other schemes of learning that I do, where I try and integrate this, is media, debating the media, so bringing in what's happening currently in the news. As I said, punctuation, always basing my speaking listening things on what's going on or what has gone on in the past. And the one-off, this was something that I really wanted to speak to you about, because I think this can be used in lots of different subject areas. Philosophy for children. So this is something that when I first did my PGCE, we had to go into primary school classrooms, and I spent a week in a Year 6 classroom, and at the end of the day I cried because I didn't like all the little kids clinging to me. But the one thing that I did take away from it was this amazing kind of teaching tool that not many people were talking about in secondary, and it was kind of seen as a primary school thing, but I was really intrigued by the way that we could use it in secondary. So the way that it was done in the primary school is that they got some sort of stimulus, either an image or a piece of music or a video, and then they would have some time to think about it, a couple of minutes just to think on their own in a circle. They'd be sat in a circle rather than with desks and chairs, so I'm sure Sean might like that idea. And then they discuss what they thought with their pair about that stimulus to give them a bit of confidence before sharing. And then instead of having their hands up, they then put their hand out on their knee when we were ready to discuss it as a class. And I picked the first, the teacher picked the first person, and then you bounce it around the room, and they pick who spoke next. And then after you've discussed some issues and raised some really good questions, I then get them into groups of 4, and then they come up with their own questions that they wanted to discuss, and they'd write them on a piece of A4 paper, put them in the middle when they're ready, and then different sections of the circle will come in and vote on which question they wanted to discuss. And that's really good for history, some science things. I found it really good in English, and I've done it a lot with Year 7, because obviously they're used to it coming up from primary school, but I've tried doing it with GCSE students, so we've been doing To Kill a Mockingbird. So I've put up a horrific image of some of the things that have gone on in that kind of historical period, and then played them some music and showed them the poem Strange Fruit, and that was our stimulus. And then they had some questions that they wanted to raise, and it was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I hope that you've got some ideas from that. Let me know.